and welcome to another episode of Boring History. My name is Angela and today we're going to be having a look at the events that led up to the birth of Alexander the Great as told by the Greek philosopher Plutarch. For some context, Plutarch wasn't just a philosopher, he was also a biographer amongst other things, and he's probably most well known for his parallel lives. This is a series of works where he compares Roman to Greek leaders in an attempt to show that they all had similar behaviours and characteristics. Essentially, he was trying to show that Greeks and Romans weren't that different and maybe should be friends, I think. Anyway, something like that. We're not here to do an analysis on Plutarch. Instead, we're here to find out about a few of the things that Plutarch tells us about the terribly dramatic events that came with the birth of Alexander. Now, at the very beginning of Alexander's biography, Plutarch makes sure to tell us that he's not actually writing a history about the people that he's writing about, but instead he's writing a lives. Hence, parallel lives. And this differentiation is important because, again, as Plutarch says, he likes to focus on conversations that were had or jokes that were made, as opposed to simply recounting how many battles somebody took part in or how many cities they conquered. The reason that Plutarch gives for this type of approach is that when we look at the interactions that people have with each other or how they conduct themselves during trying time, we're able to get a much greater insight into their character. And with that in mind, let's begin. As I mentioned in one of my Hercules videos, one of the main reasons that actually I may as well just call him Heracles considering that we are just focusing entirely on the Greek side of things. But one of the main reasons that Heracles was given so many children is that it allowed future generations to be able to claim descent from this great and mighty son of Zeus. For example, according to Plutarch, Alexander was actually a descendant of Heracles. I think it was actually through Hylas, who was the son of Heracles and Deianira. Deianira, if you remember, is the wife who kind of accidentally plays the starring role in the death of Heracles. Then on his mother's side, Alexander was said to be related to Iacos, who is another one of those 5 million kings that we find scattered throughout ancient Greek history. What was special about this king is that he was said to be the direct son of Zeus and the daughter of a river god. So essentially, Alexander the Great was just full of divine blood, namely the blood of Zeus. Now, just in case you thought to question this divine lineage, Plutarch makes sure to let us know that this lineage is accepted without question. Alexander's father was King Philip and his mother was Angelina Jolie. Just joking, his mother was called Olympias. The marriage between Alexander's parents was actually originally a love match. But then a whole heap of drama just started happening, starting with the night that Philip and Olympias consummated their marriage. During this consummation night, Olympias had a dream that there was a huge crash of thunder and that a bolt of lightning struck her womb, and then there was fire. A lot of fire, and it travelled all over the place, but then it was extinguished, so we don't have to worry about it. In fact, we don't have to worry about anything because, well, technicalities rarely matter, and remember, we should accept everything without question. Now, of course, this was a marriage, which means there are 2 starring characters, meaning that King Philip was also lucky enough to get blessed with a dream. And in his dream, he takes a seal and places it upon his wife's womb. Not stomach, her womb. Now, the first time I read that particular sentence, I pictured King Philip taking a seal, as in the animal, and placing that on his wife's stomach. But then, of course, I read on and realised that that was a completely ridiculous thing to have thought. I mean, where would you even get a seal from in ancient Greece? Did the ancient Greeks even know what seals were? I mean, these are the same people who thought that a lion could only mate with a leopard. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, because in the next sentence, Plutarch kind of clarifies and he says that in his dream, Philip thought that the seal had the picture of a lion on it. So obviously they were talking about a ring. Now, I just want to point out that this is why it's always better to read the original text if you can, because if I could read ancient Greek, I'm sure there would have been zero confusion. Because surely the ancient Greek word for seal as in the animal seal and seal as in the ring seal would be completely different. I think. Right? Maybe? Anyway, back to our story. Now the seers kind of get a little bit freaked out by King Philip's dream and they're like, maybe you should keep a bit of a closer eye on your marriage. But then this one seer is like, oi, everybody chill. Clearly the dream means that Olympias is pregnant because nobody in their right mind would put a seal on something that's empty. And more importantly, he points out that the fact that the seal showed a lion means that the child is going to be a son whose nature will be bold and lion-like. Now these dreams and symbols end up leading to even more dreams and symbols that eventually end up destroying the love that these 2 people were said to have had for each other at the beginning of their relationship. It's ridiculous. Terrible fairy tale. There was also this other incident where Philip said that he saw a serpent stretched out alongside Olympias as she slept. Now, apparently this incident dulled the ardor that Philip felt for his wife. So, it might be entirely possible that he didn't literally mean serpent, but instead meant a different type of serpent that was casually stretched out in Olympia's bed, if you know what I mean. But regardless of what type of snake we're dealing with here, this incident meant that Philip didn't go and visit his wife as much anymore because the sign of the serpent clearly meant that she was now the partner of a superior being. Which means that he was worried if he went to see her, there were fairly high odds that he'd get like a spell or something cast on him. Plutarch actually gives us an alternate explanation for the possible presence of this serpent, and he says that it's highly likely that Olympias was actually a member of the cult of Dionysus. If you don't know what that is, well, you're gonna be in for a treat on the day that you find out. But Plutarch suggests that Olympias may have been more involved in the rituals that were associated with this cult than other women. He elucidates by saying that one of the things these more devoted followers did was make friends with snakes that hung around in baskets or wrapped themselves around garlands or sticks that these women carried. Therefore, any men who happened to witness these snakes and women in action would understandably be terrified. I'm not sure if this version of the story is any more or less plausible than the one where Olympias is just casually lounging in bed with a snake, but there you have it. And regardless of which version of the story is true, after Philip had his dream about the seal and the whole snake incident, he was like, I'm going to go and seek the advice of an oracle. The oracle told Philip that he would have to make a sacrifice to Zeus. And it had to be a good sacrifice, like Zeus really had to feel that he meant it. The bad news, however, was that no matter what Philip did, he would lose the eye that he had used to peer through the crack of the door that allowed him to see his wife with the god who was currently a snake. I guess it's kind of like the modern day equivalent of going through somebody's phone, seeing something that you shouldn't see, and then not really knowing what to do with the information, because if you let the person know that you know, you're kind of also shooting yourself in the foot. Metaphorically speaking, of course. And in the case of Philip, the metaphor appears to be a bit more literal, and instead of a foot, it's an eye that gets shot. Anyway, after all the drama, Alexander is born on the 6th day of the month Hecatombaeon? Looks something like this. It's one of the months from the Attic calendar, which is one of the many calendars of ancient Greece. It's also the month which apparently almost corresponds with our July, which for us modern viewers, I guess we can take to mean that Alexander the Great was born on the 6th of July. Were you born on the 6th of July? Let me know in the comments down below. And considering that he was Alexander of Macedon, I guess I should also mention that the Macedonian version of this month was this word. Now you would think after all that confusing drama from earlier, the actual birth of Alexander should surely go smoothly. It doesn't, because the birth of a child with so many divine connections, heritage, parentage, etc., also requires a divine midwife. And so Artemis, who aside from being a little bit mean, was also the goddess of childbirth, had left her temple at Ephesus to help out at the birth. And this absence had meant that the temple was able to be burned to the ground and lost to the world forever. The priests of this temple took the destruction quite badly and ran around in circles, beating their faces, crying out that great woe and calamity must have been born for Asia on that day. Also, considering this temple is said to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, it's quite a loss. Thanks very much, Alexander. Now, of course, the story of Alexander goes on to be even more dramatic, but considering there's only so long you can listen to me gibbering on for, I'm going to say for today we've heard enough. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if you'd like to hear more about Alexander or even just random history stuff, please subscribe because I look forward to sharing even more boring history with you in the future.